Raising your adventure motorcycle. Alright, so I'm out here with the Tiger Xcx Low 800. If you remember back to my older videos, you'll remember I'm a tall rider. A low is not really for me, and I suspected there was a way that I could just sort of fix the problem, meaning raise the bike. Well, it turns out it was a little more expensive than I thought it'd be, as that usually happens. In fact, I was estimated at $2,000. The reason for that, and I'll walk you step by step. So there's two ways we can raise this bike. And one way is to replace the components that are associated with the WP suspension with that of a regular XC. So you can see why that would be expensive. You're talking about replacing a cartridge kit and replacing the entire rear shock assembly. Okay, so I did some measurements, and one of the things I noted that trying to find the differences between the regular and the low bike are hard to come by. In doing some measurements, there's roughly 2 inches of travel missing from the low up front. Now it still has a lot of range of travel, but it just sits lower, and this is because of the cartridge and spring assembly inside. Very expensive to change that. And I don't know how long I'll keep this bike, so $2,000 is a bit out of reach. But I think there's a way that we can sort of have a little bit of the best of both worlds. So, in the rear, again, you'd have to change the entire setup. Now, a common way to gain some clearance, and we'll talk about this, is this linkage right here. Now, I did some measuring, and it turns out the entire rear shock is a completely different shock on the low model. It's not the link. I suspected they actually put a lowering link on here. That's not true. So this is the same, even from a 2018 model. This is a 17. This is the same dog bone link as on the other model. It's the entire shock that's different. So a very expensive fix, as you can tell. Or so it would seem. So my garage is being rebuilt anyway, so I did a little wall art. Let me walk you through what I am planning on doing with Alex over at AM Fab, since he's the metal master. So this is a very crude motorcycle, as you can tell. Now what I've done is highlighted in red the bike, but the parts that are blue are what I am proposing that we augment. At the rear here, we have a raising link, which is a shorter dog bone link. That link will give the bike approximately 40 millimeters more height. And once we do that, of course, we would end up having a stink bugged bike. So we don't want that. We want the bike to be level. That's why we'll have to actually change the fork location. So we're going to have to bring this fork, we're going to have to raise the front of the bike up on the tube, which might mean some modification. We only have, centimeter, 2 centimeters to work with to raise this up. So we're going to have to get creative. I'm thinking some kind of metal sleeve that's machined. Okay, so just to show the idea for the tube extension, basically we're looking at fabricating or machining out some aluminum tubing with a split in a part of it for tightening down on the forks, and then up here is going to be the spot where the triple tree clamps are going to sit down on top of. So it's going to bring us up 2 inches. That's what we're looking for up front, is about 2 inches, and that will make that difference up in the suspension travel. So one thing to remember is that the stiffer springs on the low model is not going to have the same dampening characteristics as a traditional XC, but we will have the ground clearance. So I won't be taking this bike off crazy jumps or anything, but this will help us get over the rocks and logs. So anyways, this is the idea, and in episode 2 we will figure out if this stuff actually works. Now, when my weight is on this bike, there is hard. I mean, I've taken it off-roading, and there's barely any clearance with my weight on the bike. So we want to have a little more safety than that. Okay, just to give you guys an idea of the ground clearance without weight on here, we're looking at just a little bit over 6 inches. That's pretty abysmal when you compare it to the BMWs and KTMs that are achieving like 9.5, 10 inches. Now you'd get more. You would have probably 1.5 inches more, or 2 inches even, out of a regular XCX. The goal here is to get this more towards the regular XCX for the time being. So with my weight on it, just for perspective, I'm going to sit on the bike so you can see how much more it drops. So probably not much room down there, as you can tell. Now, the bummer in doing this method, I can tell you right now, when you do the links, you're changing the geometry of the bike. So you're essentially bringing the rear wheel in. So it's gonna steer much steeper. Well, maybe not much. We'll find out. But it is going to change the handling characteristics of the bike. And on the forks, it's just not the best way to do it. But the good thing here is that upon, trading the bike or whatever, easily revertible. Simply get these measurements, put the original link back on and take the sleeve off and lower the tube here back down to its factory setting. Another thing, the low model does not come with a center stand, which freaking sucks. And there you see our kickstand. Well, what's going to happen if I raise the bike? Obviously, the kickstand is not going to work, and I have no way to stand. So what we're going to do is, that's aluminum on that kickstand. We're just going to TIG weld an aluminum block that's actually a wider footprint and give it an extension. And I don't want to buy any of these factory parts. They're very expensive. So we're going to make this work. And this bike, I'm confident can meet all of my needs and could be a little more comfortable for me. Let me show you what I'm talking about, comfort. All right, not to give you a crotch shot, but all right. So notice that I'm sitting on the bike, and notice how much room I have down here. I'd rather be a little more like so. This is too low, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, this is part 1 of the video because I wanted to explain everything and but before we actually get started on this, and I've ordered a link, but we may actually just machine one. They're just pieces of metal. I think we can probably come up with something that'll work just fine. Part 2 of this video will be Alex and I in his shop getting this thing set up. So any comments, any questions, let me know. I'm looking for these answers just like anyone, and good luck finding them. They're not in the manual, and you're not going to get them from Tiger, from Triumph. They don't want you modifying their stuff, understandably. So with that said, before you modify anything, remember you're operating outside of engineering specs at that point. So just keep that in mind, and you're probably voiding some kind of warranty. This is Drangus signing out. Appreciate the subscribers, and y'all have a good one. Keep riding. Enjoy this great summer we're having. Later.